Greetings, friends, and welcome to Disc Dandies, a podcast where each episode, two friends share a recommendation with one another. We talk about what we liked, what we would change, and try not to judge each other too much over our bad taste. This week, we fall in love. Very, very slowly. Let's go.
I'm a little frustrated, Will, which is weird to say at the top of this podcast about something I'm excited to talk about.
Brother, what is on your mind?
So once again, I watch an anime and the food looks better than real food.
Animators for anime, they love making the food just out of this world, gorgeous and tasty looking, don't they?
Yeah, and as someone who was watching the show and then skipped lunch and then had to hastily cram a take 5 into my mouth before we started recording, I'm feeling it real hard right now. I'm thinking about some fried rice that showed up at one point in the series, and I want it.
Dude, and I want to take 5 now. Good choice.
Take 5's based.
All right, so, okay, this is an absolute real story. I was walking to meet my girlfriend at a local coffee place, because we're both fans of coffee, and we like, enjoying the vibe of the, eclectic coffee house atmosphere. And on the way there, I walked by a convenience store, and right there on the sidewalk was a completely sealed king-size Take 5. And I'm thinking, sweet, free candy. I pick it up, I look and see that it's, not open. This is a score, right?
I would have eaten the Take 5, yes.
Well, I did eat the Take 5.
Oh.
and my girlfriend gave me such a hard time. I brought it with me to the coffee shop, ordered my coffee, sat down, exchanged pleasantries. I was like, look at this. Look what I scored. And she looked at me with like such disappointment. And she is like, are you actually going to eat that? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to eat it. It's a free Take 5. This has become a meme between us where I'll take pictures of like thrown away candy wrappers that have just been like left on the ground. I'll take a photo of them and send it to her to remind her of the time that I ate ground candy.
So while I can't condone that in our post-COVID timeline that you eat ground candy, even with COVID going around, don't think I could refuse a fully wrapped Take 5 on the sidewalk. That I would pick that up and eat that. It is top 1 candy.
Exactly. I love it. I love free stuff, and I love giving my girlfriend a hard time. So, and apparently, she likes giving me a hard time because how are you going to criticize me?
Who are you to judge me? Only God, right?
I find this to be very amusing, but yeah. Hey, Jordan, it's been a hot minute. How you been? How's it been going?
I've been great, especially over the course of this last week. Been podcasting and watching anime, just chilling. It's been great. What about yourself?
Yeah, been a great week for me since we last recorded, and I'm super excited for this. Well, obviously because it was my exhortation, but really excited about what we're talking about this episode. I'll just come out and say it. This is my favorite anime of all time, and I'm super excited to get into the nuts and bolts of this one with you.
And I am also looking forward to having this conversation as well. I'm keeping it close to my chest, my feelings about it, until you ask.
Oh, okay, sounds good. I think that we both have a lot to say about this, so let's just get right into it. My exhortation for this episode is the anime Wotakoi, Love is Hard for Otaku. And it has a long Japanese name that I'm not going to attempt out of respect for the people who made it. But this is a short 11 episode anime series that aired in the spring of 2018. And there is one OVA. There's the 11 episode series and then an OVA that was released special on DVD or Blu-ray with one of the manga volumes. Created by the studio A1 Pictures and based on a successful manga of the same name. And it's just huge. It's like one of the biggest rom-com mangas in print today in Japan, written and drawn by Fujita.
So let me ask real quick, because I think this is important to know before we have this conversation, especially with some of the thoughts that I have. Are they going to do another season, or is this a one and done?
There is some contention about that, and that's the meme. Is like when a great anime series ends, it's always like we need a season two. You know, we need more and we need more. And when they make these, they often don't ever plan on doing a second season, even if there's more material. Because to be honest, some of these anime are really just meant to be promotional material for the manga. Now, that could be the case here. Of course, everybody is keeping any future developments close to their chest. But this is like, I don't think you can overstate how like incredibly popular this manga is in Japan. It's like one of the biggest selling manga, today over there. Incredibly successful, lots of demand, and we are now at the point where there is enough manga material to do another season. But of course, they may be wanting to give themselves a little lead time, or just need time to get production back up because of COVID, or they may just not be planning on doing anymore. We don't know. So it's up in the air as of right now.
Okay.
So, like I said, this is my favorite anime of all time. A really cute and funny romantic comedy, and I knew that you didn't know anything about this, even though I've been pressuring you to watch this for a while. But let me ask you, just off the cuff, first impression, did you like this?
Yes, I did. I liked it very much. And the reason why I asked about there being a second season is because I've kind of been having a hot debate with myself over this since I finished it. And it's a show I finished, loved what it had to say, and immediately was like, I don't want any more of it because I think it accomplished what it set out to do. And if they do have a second season, nice. I will watch it and probably enjoy it as much. But as it stands, love it.
Yeah, it is very like nicely self-contained, and we'll get into this when we talk a bit more about it. But yeah, you're right. It's very. There's no cliffhanger. There's no like big dramatic development. It wraps up everything nicely. But I definitely want there to be a second season because, of course, I love this. But let's just get right into the premise of this thing.
So that's one of the fears that I have about them doing another season is that they one of the things I respected is that there wasn't some big melodramatic plot point that happened in the series. It was an evolution thing as far as like the dynamic between characters went, and I worry that the longer that a story like this goes on that there would be something like that. And I that's my main worry about there being any more added onto the story, is that it risks the integrity of what they have right now.
Sure, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I guess we'll just see. I mean, as of right now, there's no news of a second season, so we'll just have to take it as it comes. But
Sure.
Would you like to just go ahead and get to the premise of this thing?
Sounds good.
So the story of this anime follows our main couple, and this is Narumi and Hirotaka, two adults in their 20s. It starts out with Narumi, who is moving to start a new job after she was publicly outed as an otaku at her old place of employment, and her boyfriend who worked there found out and dumped her over finding out about her being an otaku. And for those of you who don't know, otaku is the Japanese term for, basically translates very loosely as like nerd, or like a geek. It's a word used to denote somebody who is very very obsessed with a particular thing, any sort of nerdy topics, or things that are off the beaten path. You could think of it as the opposite of the word normie.
Yeah, this is like like what would be like a comic book or video game fan here in the U.S. It's more of an umbrella term that they have for that. Like for us, it would just be like nerd.
And my understanding is that in Japanese, culture, the just like normal pop culture, that otaku is not seen as a good thing. It's a derogatory term, and it kind of is over here too. But with us being kind of a bit removed from that culture, it doesn't have the baggage that does in their culture. It doesn't feel. It's not as intrinsically a bad thing to us, but over there, it's not something you want to be known as.
There's like a cultural weight behind the word. It's more so than there would be for like nerd or dork here in the U.S. Like it's almost like a big red flag for someone in Japan to have this title.
Yeah, for sure. So Narumi moves to this new area and starts a new job. And of course, she's worried about her secret being found out again. And as luck would have it, she immediately runs into her childhood friend, Hirotaka, who works there as well and is also an otaku. After spending some time reconnecting and commiserating about the woes of dating while being an otaku, Hirotaka suddenly asks to be a couple, kind of springs it on her as they walk home one night. And the rest of the show is just these two awkwardly growing closer while, being themselves and spending time with their otaku friends and just learning to be a nerdy otaku couple.
Yeah, and I think that as we'll get into here in a second, I think all of that is done really well.
Yeah, it really is. One of the reasons I love this anime so much is that it's very cute, sweet, funny, and mature and realistic, and we'll get into that here in a bit later. But I think there are four main characters that we see throughout the anime, but I think that any way you cut it, you could say that Narumi is the main character, or the closest to like an author insert that this comes into. So her full name. Do you want to do this like with like family name first, and then like a given name second in the Japanese style, as they say?
So this is rough because I am all over the place in how I refer to the characters. Like I refer by Narumi by her first name. I refer to Hirotaka as Nefuji because basically they're the names that are said the most: is Narumi, Nefuji, Kayanagi, and Kabakura. Those are the ones that Momose was said I think a few times in like their professional setting, but that was one of the things I did have a hard time with, was just kind of keeping track with like their names.
Yeah, because that's because it has to do a lot with how they refer to each other. But yeah, so our main character, so to speak, is Momose Narumi, and Narumi is her given name. She's kind of that, I don't want to say she's tropey, but she does fit that kind of small, cute, outgoing, kind of ginky, anime character. Did you get that feeling from her?
Yeah, she's definitely like what I might get the wrong terminology down here, but she's definitely like the Lolita type, flowery, happy-go-lucky character that you tend to see in anime.
Yeah, very outgoing, very popular, with her friends and at work. She does that thing that you see sometimes with like shoujo protagonists who are clumsy at work. That kind of she's not Mary Sue, but that kind of Mary Sue-ish thing where her main a drawback is that she's clumsy and like she accidentally makes a whole bunch of copies she wasn't supposed to make. So she kind of fits within that.
Whenever you say drawback, do you mean like flaws, or is that where you're going with that?
Yeah, character flaws.
Okay.
With some stories how they're meant to be inserts and they're meant to be kind of perfect characters, except they have a character flaw, but it's like so inconsequential that it doesn't affect anything. I feel like the clumsiness at work is falling into that trope.
Yeah, while there definitely aren't any like people with like crippling flaws in the show, I would actually like say that she has a physical insecurity, which kind of is played for laughs most of the time. It's mostly about her like chest size.
Right.
It comes up quite a bit. She is pretty insecure about it, which I think is actually like a really nice thing to see in a show like this, because like while it is played for laughs, it is just like kind of a big point that it's like a soft spot for her.
Yeah, no. One thing I like about this anime is that these are all very nuanced 3D characters. I don't want to make it sound like I think that these people are tropes. But I think
Sure.
the clumsy at work thing is a trope.
Gotcha.
That's very much in the line of the small, cute, outgoing, ginky anime character. But she is an otaku. So her specialty, and they talk about otaku having specialties in this show a lot. The four main characters are all otaku in different ways. And for her, it's writing and drawing boys love doujins. She very much likes the yaoi. And
who doesn't, right?
Exactly. And she makes it and then sells it at Comic-Con. And apparently people like see her, seek her out specifically and buy her stuff. So she's getting she's not like famous or like really successful, but she has fans, she has a following, so she's clearly has some talent at it. But yeah, that kind of colors a lot of how she sees the world. And she actually spends it's played for gags a lot, but there's a lot of times where she sees like groups of guys in public and starts kind of fantasizing about them being a couple, which is funny when it's played for laughs, but it's a little weird when you think about it. But hey, I guess otaku are weird. That kind of comes with the territory, right?
Yeah, they do a really good job of establishing that everyone in the show's a weirdo, but you love them for it.
Most people are weirdos when you get down to it, right?
I'm normal. Am I not normal?
So, her eventual boyfriend, in the show, is Nefuji Hirotaka, and Hirotaka is his given name, and him and Narumi refer to each other by their first name. So that's why we're going to be using Narumi and Hirotaka to refer to them. And he also has some tropiness to him. He is, very tall, wears glasses. He's very quiet. And he's not very outgoing. So, if you think about those kind of like, tall, mysterious guys, he kind of fits in that.
I actually felt this way about him watching the show, which is that I thought he was super tropey in the first episode, but I think they very quickly established that this is definitely a show about characters getting to know each other, but also like the viewer getting to know the characters as well. And dude has layers. I feel like his initial tropey outward appearance is not as tropey as I think you would believe initially.
Now, Hirotaka's specialty is video games, and I mean he is seriously addicted to games. He has a really low attention span for anything else. If it's not about video games, he loses interest very quickly.
I think probably the most relatable of the characters, and that he has a very American hobby. I say American hobby, but it's the one that probably most Americans would identify with at this juncture.
Yeah, drawing yaoi doujins is not something I think a lot of Americans do, unless you're like really into Tumblr.
Not mainstream.
No, definitely not. But yeah, Hirotaka, and as the show goes, you see he really is a sweetheart, and he has a lot of layers to himself, insecurities and that kind of stuff, both about his relationship and just the way that he relates to other people, because he isn't outgoing. He, really is reserved. So as the show goes on, you really get into like his way of thinking and all of his anxieties, which is really compelling.
Actually really admire the choice that they made for his character, which is that he is not outgoing, and he doesn't really mind that. Like, he seems for the most part to, at least that part of his personality and lifestyle, like he does want to interact and like be close to other people, but not so much that he's bothered by being alone. I like that layer.
Yeah, for sure, and that's definitely something that kind of evolves as the anime progresses. He gets a little more comfortable with like letting people into his life and like allowing himself to accept other people. Yeah, definitely compelling character. And these two are just like. I mean, I'm going to say it, they're adorable. Watching them just like interact with each other and just learn to like be comfortable with each other. It's just so sweet to watch them.
Yeah, it is. They are the epitome of a well-realized couple, and they would be even if this weren't an anime. I think that this is a coupling that I think that you would actually more commonly see on the streets. You know what I mean? Like, very, very real pairing to me.
Yeah, for sure. And part of why they're so great to watch is that we actually have another otaku couple to compare them to. And these two also work at the same company, which isn't named, by the way. That's not important, but they never actually say what they do at this job. It's just generic like cubicle farm office space place.
It's Office Incorporated is the name, I believe.
Pretty much. But yeah, so we get another couple. And the first one of these actually becomes really close friends with Narumi very early. And this is Koyanagi Hanako. And, we mostly hear her referred to as Koyanagi. So I'll be referring to her as that. And she kind of has that mature, like office lady, like high sex appeal type characterization going on with her. She's very much, In comparison with Narumi, she's very different in terms of just outward appearance.
She's very dom, if you could put it like in the direction of like a certain trope. She's very much a for the most part confident in herself and her interest type person, and she also likes to unsettle her friends. That sort of personality.
Oh yeah. And we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about Kabakura. But she can be very hot-headed every now and then. When she feels like her point needs to be defended, she will absolutely step up and defend it.
And something that I'll say real quick about both Koyanagi and Kabakura, before we haven't fully gotten into Kabakura yet, but like the two of them are both like bros to the respective friends. They are very much like good friends. And not in terms of like closeness, but in terms of like looking out for them. It's very sweet.
Yeah, it's really nice. You could tell that these are just really deep friendships that are very healthy for everyone involved, which is really nice to see.
Yes.
So Koyanagi is also an otaku, and her specialty is crossplay. So she does cosplay, but with her being, let's be honest, a very voluptuous woman, will crossplay as a man and play these kind of like fierce, like battle hardened,
dreamy dudes.
she plays very masculine men, and dresses herself and does things to make her pass as a man while doing the cosplay. I'd also say that she is a bit of a normie, like not as much as Kabakura, but if you just saw her in normal life, you wouldn't look at her and think, oh, that's an otaku. She does like really weird, cosplay stuff. She seems pretty normal and passes off as a normie, right?
Yeah, I would say she was definitely the most surprising out of the first episode to have been revealed to be an otaku, because when her initial presentation is very like business oriented. Like the most identifying features are just that she is obviously like portrayed to be a very sexy woman, but she doesn't really seem to like stand out in any regard until it's revealed that she like cosplay. Crossplay is really hard.
Yeah, she's really funny too. She has some of the funniest dialogue out of the entire anime. I think that she's a very well written character.
Yes, I agree with that.
And her partner, our other character who works there, is Kabakura Taro. Kabakura is his family name. That's how everyone responds to him, especially since he is a person of authority at their workplace. He is a boss. He's a manager.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a very serious demeanor, almost world weary is how I would put it. He's very much over everything, and he comes off as scary, to people who aren't close to him.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that once you get to know them and you learn about your shared interests, he becomes less scary, but he has that initial barrier you kind of have to jump over, where it's like, I am interested in talking to this person about these things, but they scare me and I don't know how to start the conversation.
Oh yeah, they play that off for laughs a couple of times with junior coworkers will talk about how scary he is. But once we, the viewers, see him, especially interacting with his girlfriend Koyanagi, we see that he really is a sweetheart and is really a good person, down in his heart.
Yeah, as much as you can be a sweetheart while calling your girlfriend an ugly hag. Yeah.
Yeah. So he is also an otaku, but he's probably like the least otaku out of everyone in this cast, and is the most normie presenting. And that's a big thing for him. He actually really cares about whether he's seen as an otaku and will go to great lengths to kind of hide this from everyone.
Despite reading some of the most like flagrantly otaku manga as we see throughout the series.
Yeah, it's really funny, and it's kind of normie in its own way, or maybe at least it is to us, here in America. His his specialty is he really likes the really mainstream like shonen anime and manga. Like he's the guy that's really into like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and like Haiku, the real well-known stuff. In addition to like ecchi, the stuff that like stereotypical straight men would be into, that's like cute and lewd.
Right.
Yeah, so those are our four main characters, and there are actually two more that are introduced towards the end of the anime. Would you want to mention those real quick, Jordan?
Yeah, sure. So there was Hirotaka's brother is introduced later on in the series. I guess at about the midpoint, we see a little bit of his interactions with someone else who they're so briefly in the anime that I can't remember the name. I think it's Ko.
Yeah, Kokun, as Now Chan likes to say.
Yeah, and we get like a kind of some sweet interactions with them, but I don't think that their relationship is really forefront enough in the series to like. I think that if there's going to be a season 2, they will probably take up some amount of that more prominently. But for the purposes of this podcast, I think we can let viewers just kind of check them out on their own.
Right. One thing I forgot to mention. A big thing between Koyanagi and Kabakura they are the type of couple, they burn very hot. They are the ones that have like very frequent lovers quarrels, especially in public. One of our first scenes of them kind of interacting with each other was them having a big like argument where they were pretty much at each other's throats, and it's played for laughs, but it is kind of weird to see, especially if you're not used to seeing people who are in a relationship kind of act that way towards each other. But it's very much like the dynamic that those two have.
Yeah, it comes from a pretty innocent place. They're both also portrayed as pretty competitive, having known each other from from school and having played like sports around each other and competing for like field time and stuff like that. So their relationship was originally born out of a pretty competitive place, and it seems to have carried over into their relationship.
Right. Yeah. And they work as a really great like foil to our main couple who are not like that at all. And a lot of the plot points of the anime kind of juxtapose these two couples to kind of make the same point that, relationships take a lot of forms, and, moving, kind of being in a relationship that moves at the pace that both of you are comfortable at is much more desirable than a relationship where you're moving according to someone else's idea of what a relationship is.
Yeah, this is an anime that very much likes to make the point that you should throw out the rule book when entering into a relationship, because the same rule book doesn't apply to everyone. And in most cases, it probably just isn't a good fit. I mean, I think that this is an anime that is interested in exploring our preconceptions of people and how they don't really apply to people once we actually get to know them, and how that ties into their to our relationships.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, let's just get right into these themes. I think at its core, and like what you were just trying to say, I think that this anime is really it's a realistic, mature look at relationships. A lot of anime doesn't show relationships, like this, that are like very believable and are like the relationships we see and have the same real world problems and anxieties that are, that relationships in real life do.
Yeah, and I would even go as far as saying that it does the really mature thing as far as like a anime about relationships go, and it makes the decision not to have a lot of drama. There is turmoil and like some like speed bumps that the characters go through, but most of them are inner struggles and insecurities. But there's not like a big subplot where someone cheats or like work's getting in the way of our relationship. Most of it is just exploring like connections, and I think that's like a very admirable trait in an anime, which personally I see as like a medium that isn't exactly subtle.
Yeah, for sure. There's just something about manga and anime and light novels, I guess, where the focus is really on like children. Let's just say, like high school students. It's very much some sort of like nostalgia for like a past or a time where things were, the future was brighter and things, were more pure, so to speak. And I just love the fact that this is about real adults. They're all in their like mid to late 20s, and with the realistic depictions of what's going on. It's super nice and a departure from what we normally see in anime. And now I'm addicted. I really want to really dive deep into anything that has like adults and depicts like real life work and what life is like for real adults.
I appreciated seeing two people have like a conversation in this show, and that because that's what almost all of it is just people talking and spending time with one another and like getting to know each other and making like micro decisions and like that. Like it's all things that you don't see them in normal shows, not just anime. I don't want to pick on anime too much as it's like a genre, but like in general, it's hard to find stories or shows or games or anything where it's just like people and talking, and in most cases not really about anything. Like it's mostly just like watching them change and evolve, and that's just a really like rare quality.
And this anime does it while being really, really funny. Like,
yes,
this is hilarious, and it's super nerdy. There's all sorts of little like otaku references here and there to like real otaku properties, to real nerdy properties.
All right, so episode 1, Narumi and Hirotaka go out together as friends to a bar for drinks after work. After running into each other, kind of serendipitously for the first time in a while, basically since childhood, they are both breaking out these Switch-like devices. And Tristan and I were just, we were like, oh, that's the Switch. And then a Monster Hunter sound effect played, and Tristan just about like that was like the anchor point for the series from there, was that they were playing Monster Hunter in a bar, which, for me and Tristan, my girlfriend, are like that's like one of our shared like big interests. I loved a lot of the references, like, between like Smash Brothers, which they couldn't say blatantly, and like just other things like Yu-Gi-Oh cards and like Pokemon Go.
Mario
Yeah, Mario Kart. Like, you see like Game Boys and like Wii remotes and stuff. I love all of it, and it sounds like a really silly thing to get caught up on, but seeing those things, one, are nostalgic, but also very relatable. And like as fans of all of those things, it kind of hooked us, seeing it in the setting.
You can tell in the creation of this that really is a love letter to just being an otaku and being a nerd. They really didn't hold back on any of like the very specific references, and I think that really helps in its favor, because it's a show about otaku by otaku, and we can see that by what they're putting into the show. Like it's really weird that Hirotaka just plays a Switch. Like, they had to pay for that, and that they were willing to like do what they needed to do to be able to get as close to saying they're playing Mario Kart as they possibly could, or basically be like, this might not be exactly Monster Hunter, but they're playing Monster Hunter. It's you could very much assume that they're playing that. And
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but no, they are straight up playing Monster Hunter. When they show the screens on the Switches, that is Monster Hunter Generations on the Switch that they're playing. Like that is 1-to-1 Monster Hunter.
Absolutely. And also another thing, and I guess you wouldn't really know this unless you're like super into manga, but it seems weird if you don't know, but on the very first episode, when Narumi is like rushing to get onto the train, and she looks at like a poster and she's like, oh, that person looks so cute today. That is a real movie that came out maybe last year, and like they're just advertising that. They got the rights to be able to like advertise that movie in the show. It is kind of product placement, but in a way it's like, hey, this is our otaku bona fides. There are, when they're in the Animate is a real store. The manga that they look at in Animate is all real manga. Posters in the apartments are like posters of like real manga, and to see that kind of stuff peppered in, it's just really cool.
Like, sure, you like someone could probably criticize it as product placement, but I mean that's stuff we see in the world. If you were to go to Japan, you would see those things around. Like, I assume anyways. Like, advertisements are real, feel in like this anime really seems, intent on capturing a time and place, which is, it's the fairly recent now. And it doesn't feel like sweaty or like they're trying to make that like that sale off of those things. It helps the world more than anything, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In preparation for this episode, we decided that there was a lot that happens towards the end of the show that we really wanted to get into the details. But we want to make sure that this is, for anyone who doesn't want to be spoiled on any big things that happen, that we would kind of put a big warning, a big stop sign, so everyone knows. I guess we're just going to go ahead and get into the heavy spoilers that we're talking about. So if anyone listening wants to not spoil themselves on like the big plot points towards the end of the show, please skip ahead to
46 minutes and 24 seconds.
So yeah, just forewarning, we're going to talk about spoilers here. Feel free to skip ahead. And okay, so you said that there was something that happened in here you really wanted to talk about. What's on your mind?
Okay, so it's more just the mission statement of the series, and the reason why I love it as much as I did, and how it comes full circle. Before we started recording, I said that I think that you don't really get any payoff if you just watch the first few episodes. And let me clarify that. I think that you will enjoy it. You'll get what the show is going for in terms of its like slice of life, like nature, and like how it's like what it's doing with these characters. I think that there are things to be enjoyed, but I didn't have the thesis of what this anime was trying to say down until the later episodes, whenever the actual, I guess, conflict, or this show's version of conflict, comes into play, which is when Hirotaka starts to notice, whenever Hirotaka starts to realize that he and Narumi are not necessarily fitting the bill as far as like a traditional relationship goes, and it causes some inner speculation. And and Narumi picks up on this in some respects as well, where she starts to kind of like speculate on this. But it kind of like is the connective tissue between the episodes in the back half of the series. And I think it is what, for me, what really made me fall in love with everything. Like they don't even go on a date until episode 9. Like episode 9 is their big date episode.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Episode 9, where they do the amusement park day, I really do think is the crux of this whole series. Like every theme and like point that this piece of media is trying to make is most pointedly made in that episode. So I totally hear what you're saying.
Yeah, it's the payoff episode, I think. And it, like, it's weird to say, but like these people pretty much form like they become a couple in the first episode, but they don't, and they spend a lot of time together, and with Hana and Kamakura, and they spend most of the time as like like just persistent double dating is more what it is, but they don't go on any real dates together. And it's brought up in like at the end of episode 8, like, hey, we should like do that, right? And the main like messaging from the series is mostly just blatantly said in this episode, where, and this is my probably favorite scene in the entire series, and why I find it really difficult to talk about the series without talking about spoilers. They run into Hana and Kamakura on like near an amusement ride, and like it's a horror themed amusement ride, and Narumi runs off with Kamakura mistakenly thinking it was Hirotaka. So it kind of splits the two couples up, and they have their respective conversations about their relationships.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of like the funniest parts of the entire show is when she's like, "Oh, we gotta go. I'm not scared, I promise." And then shoving Kamakura without seeing it was him into the boat. And then when she realized it was him and she goes white face, that gets me every time.
Great moment, yeah. And I love the comedy coming from those two, because like you used the word earlier, it juxtaposes the serious conversation happening in the cart behind them between Hanako and Hirotaka, and it's their conversation that I loved it so much. Mostly just because it came back around and resolved that the insecurities that Hirotaka was feeling to this point were mostly just kind of like invalidated in a good way, because they like Hana made the point like, hey, everyone moves at their own pace, and this pace is working for you too, and you should just kind of embrace that. And the entire series is just kind of like a testament to like, one, stop trying to be things that fit what the projected image of what a relationship should be are, and kind of lean into what works with you too. And in the same episode, the same date episode, Hirotaka and Narumi, they agree to not talk about otaku things, and they keep a piggy bank where they throw, a coin in if they mistakenly talk about otaku things.
Just hilarious.
Yeah, it's really good. The gag works really well, but it leads to some uncomfortable moments for them, because that's one of the things they actually love about each other, is that they can just be themselves and talk about the things they love. By the end of this episode, they both resolve, like, hey, look, this is what works. Our pace is working for both of us. Like, it doesn't fit what we imagined, a relationship to be, but it's what's beautiful about ours. And that is what put me over on the series, actually, was that just that whole episode was just like, it made me realize that the show was not concerned with big melodramatic breakdowns and, like the things you would see in typical romance shows. It was about like making a statement about how relationships, each relationship is a fingerprint.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, episode 9 really just needs its own little mini podcast to break down, because it just so thoroughly like hits all of the major points that this anime is trying to make, like we said before. I would actually kind of push back a little bit. You said that episode 9, when they go to the amusement park day, is really their first date. I actually don't think that that's true. The whole like ending of the episode reinforces the idea that they are moving at their own pace, and that's perfectly fine. The pace that they were moving before was when they were just taking those little mini dates to like animate or the arcade or stuff like that. The big like, oh, we're going to go to the amusement park and it's going to be non-otaku and we're going to just be a normal couple, was kind of a failure in the way that it was not what they wanted to do. It wasn't true to who they were as people. And part of the payoff of this episode is realizing like, hey, what we were, this was really wonderful, but what we were doing before was perfectly fine and what works for us.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with it to an extent. I think the act. So whenever I say first date, I agree with your definition here. That they were both thinking like, "Hey, this is going to be the date we're supposed to go on." This is what couples do, right? But I think what they were more acting on is like, we need to be more. We need to act a little bit more like we're in a relationship, which kind of comes back up in the last episode when Narumi has finally resolved that hey, I want to be more like a girlfriend to Hirotaka, and she makes him food and like comes and hangs out at his apartment because she wanted to see him, not because she felt like she needed to. It was more the sense that was the first episode where, well, I mean, not so much Hirotaka, but where Narumi was like, hey man, we need to get out and we need to go do a couple thing, And I think it was, this is going to kind of like bridge over into another point I wanted to make, which is that this is like a reverse relationship, and that they both kind of were just giving this a shot because they were good friends despite the risks. But we kind of see them like actually like as close as you can fall to love without saying the word love, like where they come to really see each other as relationship material over the course of the series. They start dating before the interest, at least from Narumi's end, occurs.
Yeah. And that's one of the most interesting things about the comparison to the other couple, Koyanagi and Kawakura. One of the big things in the second episode is that they have like a discussion about like the anxiety of starting their relationship started because Narumi said Hirotaka is not really like my preferred like physical ideal. It's Kawakura, and that's actually flipped with the others as well. Koyanagi says that Hirotaka is really more her physical ideal. So and that's referenced a little bit in the amusement park date when they're talking to the person in the other couple.
Yes.
So there's that too. That's like not a barrier, but like one of the things that's kind of causing them to take such a slow pace, so to speak.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really nice towards the end of the series when they start kind of picking up a little bit. When Narumi's like, I do want to like go over and make food for Hirotaka. I want to watch the show with him, but the fact that they waited until that point to do that, and it's just such a small thing that they're starting out with, is just proof that that is the pace that's great for them. And they are kind of going in a very like normal and healthy way.
Yeah, and that's something I just to kind of like bring the spoiler section to a close. That's one of the things that I really like loved about this series was just that it didn't have a negative perspective on the things that they were doing. It seemed to kind of celebrate the fact that they were, or no, it not even seemed, it did celebrate the fact that they were otaku. Like whenever there's a scene where Hirotaka tells Narumi, he says, I want to be a kid forever. It was probably one of the few times in any media where that wasn't said, and then someone gasped in horror. She embraced it and agreed. It was like, hey, I love my interests and I want to love them forever, and it was also kind of like a companion piece of the relationships here, where it was like, hey, this pace is slow and other people might see that as a negative thing, but it works for us and it's beautiful.
Yeah. This show really is like a celebration of just being who you are, and not being ashamed of that, and surrounding yourself with people who are willing to accept you for who you are. And I don't think this is really a spoiler because it's talked about in the first episode. Narumi's previous boyfriend dumped her because she was a fujoshi, a rotten girl, as they say. She was an otaku, and she's in a much happier and healthy relationship now because she doesn't have to hide who she is. Her friends accept her for who she is. And I'll say, I've always been a nerd my entire life. There are times where, I have felt self-conscious of like really owning, the fact that I'm super into like card games, and that I like manga and anime and stuff like that. And this is really just a celebration of being who you are and how that can make you happier in the long term by embracing it.
Yeah, and it seems like most of the doubts and insecurities that they have are a result of how society views their hobbies and not how they view them. It's never once pitched as, oh, I should do this thing less. It's just like, I worry what people think of me. That's always the conflict, not so much that there's actually anything wrong with the hobbies. And I love that.
Yeah, I just love this anime. Like it's so sweet and cute and funny. And honestly, this is one of the pieces of media that really spoke to me when I very first saw it. You know how you have things, you experience things and you like them, and you're like, oh yeah, that was really good. On to the next thing. This is one of those things where I watched it and like it made an impression on me. You experience it and you think, I didn't know I could like something this much, or I didn't know that something could like speak to me, to who I am as a person, illuminate, how my relationships are and how I feel, my anxieties. And this anime just really made a really strong impression on me. I just love it to death. And one more thing that I really liked about this anime is it really kind of got me to kind of, think about my own relationships and, be more appreciative of like the relationship that I have with my girlfriend, because I'm a very anxious person. I have a lot of anxieties about a lot of things, my friendships, like stuff at work and stuff. And then, my relationship with my girlfriend, who I love very, very much. And, like I watched this show and loved it. And then I introduced it to her, and we've watched it together multiple times. We both love it to death. And this show really like makes me feel, really appreciative of her, even though, she's not a normie, but I think she's a bit more normie than I am. But, I watch the show and it really makes me like think about our relationship and really appreciate what we have together.
Oh, and really, real quick, I promised Tristan I would bring this up because she felt the need to defend Meg's honor. You may or may not remember this, but in a previous episode, I think it was a Diabolical one, Tristan was listening to the podcast, and she heard you say that Meg was not, you wouldn't consider her a gamer. Tristan's coming out with the chair to say, no, Meg has put over 200 hours into Animal Crossing. That girl's a gamer.
I remember saying that, and I remember immediately regretting saying that. So yes, I will take my licks. I understand that was the wrong thing to say. Meg, I'm sorry, but yeah. So no, I am correctly called out.
Yeah. So just to now that we've gotten your lashings out of the way, right back at you in regards to like what this has made me think about my own relationship. one of the things that is hard to find in like media for me today, because there's so much of it, and some things are put out for pretty superficial reasons, and I don't find myself connecting with a ton of things that I play or like watch or anything like that or read. But whenever something does connect with me, it's because it's made me reflect on myself and my life. And this one hit me really hard because it was just like Tristan and I. There are kids involved in the relationship. They're all three hers, and we have struggles balancing time between playing with our own hobbies and stuff like that, and being good parents to them. And this just kind of helped me feel a little bit better about my position, like as a person and my interests, and I'm not like bringing toxic things into these kids' lives, and that it is healthy, and that the societal influence is overstated. And I really appreciated seeing that reflected and kind of just being told, uh, gently, like, hey, it's okay, love what you love, it's not bad, it's great.
Absolutely. In terms of like message and theme, it's this anime existing is definitely a good for the world.
Yeah, and also Tristan and I love you, and this anime, I feel obligated to say it after this because it great watching it with you, and I'm sure we'll be watching it as much as Meg and Will did.
I knew you two would like this. This is why we wanted to be so adamant about you all watching this. I knew it. That makes me so happy to know that you really like this. But if you're okay with it, let's talk a little, just real briefly, about the more technical stuff about this anime. Like the animation. I wanted to ask you specifically, because this is an anime, but the drawing style of like the characters, they're not like chibi or like moe. They're very like realistic, drawings of humans. Do you like the way that the characters are drawn in this anime?
Whenever it comes to like really well animated and drawn anime, I definitely don't want to like sound like I'm bagging on the show or anything like that, but it is serviceable. I don't think I would like point to this as a beacon of animation and top tier, like anime, like a big like flag holder for the medium as like as a visual art form. But I think it does a really good job, like accomplishing what they want it to.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. In terms of the depictions of the characters, it's very appropriate for the type of like mature, like about adults anime that this is. Yeah, I wanted to make a point myself with the animation quality. It's a little lacking here
Yeah.
and there. Yeah, it's not the pinnacle of animation. There is one particular point at the very beginning when Narumi is running to make the train at the very beginning of the show, and they do this shot where she comes in from the background, like closer up to the foreground, and it's like, ooh, that doesn't look great.
Yeah. But hey, I think it is fine. I definitely don't want to say it's the worst, but it is like, hey, look, the decisions they made for the animations and stuff like that, like both lent themselves to the realistic portrayal of those characters, but also to some of the more wackier, sillier stuff that they went into. With some of like the more emotive animations that they made for them.
Yeah. That is one. Like one place where the animation excels is that it really highlights like the visual gags and like the funny reaction faces and the visual like otaku jokes. It does a great job of showing those really well. It's just like the actual like fluid movements of humans is where it could use some work. But yeah, a great story, and animation quality doesn't really detract from how great the show is.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
And the music. I have to talk about the music. I love both the opening and the ending to this show. They're both done by just like actual like music artists that like have real music, and then just had a song in an anime or an ending or anime opening or ending. Both of them are on Spotify for anyone that wants to listen to them. I like to listen to them quite a bit myself. Did you like the music in the show?
I liked the intro and outro music, but I'll say that I found like some of the music during the episodes to be a little chaotic, a little bit like kind of overwhelming the scene a little bit in some cases. It was never enough to make me go like, oh man, that didn't work. But it was just like I would notice the music a little more often than I would like to.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I actually just listened to the OST, like not the opening and closing, but just like the music they use in the show. I listen to it in the background on YouTube when I'm doing other things. So I have to say I'm a fan.
Yeah, I like the music, just maybe not necessarily what like how it was during like talking scenes or something like that. It definitely isn't like the quality of the music that's bad. It's more just like its presence and like what was happening on screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand. But I want to know, are you ready for some quick hits?
Hit me.
Who do you most identify with on the show?
So this is the tough question because there are obviously like shades of all of them that I identify with, mostly in like the hobbies. But mostly the men between like the figurine interest in collecting and the video games. Like I'm kind of, maybe you could call me basic in those regards. Hirotaka, almost 1-to-1 in terms of gaming interests. I like single player games a lot. The multiplayer games I play, like, for social interaction and not much more.
Let's call in Otaku. Both you and I are pretty much just Hirotaka. Like, we're both tall, we both wear glasses, we both love video games. We're both not. I mean, we're both kind of that like kind of reserved, nerdy person. Let's just call it what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that you relate to him.
Yeah, and I will say that I think I'm a Hirotaka with some shades of Hanako, mostly just because I've made a good reputation out of being a troll to my loved ones, and I related with that. Her gags and like her kind of like casual prodding and stuff like that is something I do a lot to my household. I'm sure they find it funny sometimes, find it annoying more often, but yeah, that's a trait I identified with a lot with her.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I definitely relate to Hirotaka quite a lot. I definitely have the same mannerisms. I pretty much look pretty much the same. But I honestly, I can't. I really feel that I'm a bit closer to Kabakura. Like I that world weariness that he has. I feel that a lot, especially when I'm like out and about or dealing with something at work. I feel like I'm embodying him more often than not.
That's just getting old, my dude.
Yeah, I guess so. Where did my youth go? So what is your otaku specialization? Hirotaka's got the video games. Narumi has porn. Kabakura likes the shonen anime, and Koyanagi crossplays. What is your specialty?
Gaming is the obvious one, but I will say that lately I have a really strong interest in like some more tactile hobbies like mechanical keyboards and Gundams and stuff like that. Those are things that I've been kind of like a little ridiculous about getting into. And then one I'm sure you'll be able to connect with is just like card games. Magic the Gathering is a big one.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, my specialization is 100% Magic the Gathering. It just has to be. I've been playing for 17 years. It's I am definitely the card game otaku.
Yeah, if I'm identifying with one property the most, it would be anything released by From Software, like any Dark Souls or Bloodborne or anything like that. Is like that's just me. It's a game packaged and ready for me.
Yeah, totally understand. So is love hard for otaku?
Love is very hard for an otaku, especially when you don't realize that people are. Something that kept coming up in the show was that like they didn't realize that all of the people were kind of fawning over them and stuff like that. I feel like Tristan has to tell me a lot that like I'm as sad as this might sound, I'm an attractive human being in some capacity, and it was kind of funny seeing that reflected a lot in the show, and they their opinions of themselves are like, I'm a big old nerd and people aren't gonna like me for that. And then everyone around them's like, oh, this person is like a flamer. My goodness, so good.
Jordan, you're valid.
Oh, thanks, man. You too.
I have to agree. Love is hard for otaku, but more of a function of it's hard for everyone, right?
Yes.
I heard a really good quote. My girlfriend shared this with me. I think that she got it from Justin McElroy of My Brother and Me. For a successful relationship between two people, both people need to be putting in 60%. And that's tough. We're not used to thinking of it that way, but relationships are work. You have to put in a little bit more than you're getting out. So, it's tough for everyone, but especially for otaku, because then there's the extra anxieties on top of that.
Yeah, because that's while we're referencing other places that we've heard about relationships and stuff, I actually don't remember the specific spot I heard about this, but anytime you enter a relationship with a nerd, you're not your partner's not the only person in that relationship, because part of being an otaku is like being fervently in love with these hobbies, and you have to learn how to balance that with being with this other person, and but not just for yourself, but also for your partner. And
Yeah.
that can be difficult.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm definitely coming to you when I need relationship advice in the future.
I don't know about that. I have made Tristan can tell you I've made many a mistake.
All right, I have one more question for you, and I 100% serious, and don't lie. Have you at all attempted any of the hand dancing that happens in the opening?
Not yet. Mostly because we've you're probably gonna cringe when I say this, but we've been skipping that intro. It's long.
Oh no! Oh no! I love the OP for this one. I never skip it.
It's good. It's a long one, and when watching it with kids, they quickly lose patience.
Oh, okay, fair enough. If you're watching with kids, that's definitely a different thing. I love that part. Well, everyone loved that. When this anime first aired, that was like the big thing that everyone was talking about, was how fluidly animated the quote hand dance thing they did in the opening was. And there's all sorts of videos of people out there trying to do it, and trying to like learn the moves for it. And one interesting thing about that is people didn't know what to call it. They kept calling it like that weird hand dance thing. And this came out in the beginning, or like April of 2018. It's now the end of 2020, and I think we could all like agree that like they were always doing a TikTok. Like we just know what to call it now.
Yeah, it was a TikTok. I thought it was like some sort of sign language whenever I was watching it. I assumed maybe that they were like saying the lyrics in sign language, but I didn't. That was just me being a smooth brain inferrer.
I've never tried to do it, but if I could just immediately do it correctly, I absolutely would.
That'd be very clean of you, yeah.
It would. It would. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm so glad that you like this. Wotakoi, good anime.
So good, actually, that it made me have a brainchild with you for something that we're going to be bringing to the show from here on out.
I'm sorry. What?
We conceived a child together from our minds. It's like Athena, but shared and much more intimate.
Huh.
Yeah, it's something that is not going to come often, mostly just because we are allowed to like things that other people recommend to us, and that's going to happen a lot on the show. And I'm sure there will be times where we dislike a recommendation made to the other, an exhortation that's made. But I think that there are going to be special occasions where we watch something that we are exhorted, and then we connect with something and really like love that thing. It's like, it's not just a like, it's not just like, oh, I really enjoyed that. It's something that I would say, like, on a scale of 1 to 10 is beyond the 10. It's something you're going to come back to and enjoy again, and I think it's a prestigious status, and I want to commemorate those things. And we agreed on this before the episode, but we're going to give them the title of Dandy AF, the AF meaning as fuck.
Hey, you can't say that on a podcast.
I'm saying it. Wotakoi, dandy as fuck, man.
Dandy as fuck. I love this idea, and I'll definitely keep this in mind for future exhortations that you give me. I'm sure that I'll find the good in whatever you suggest to me. But yeah, there's going to be some things that we really connect with, and I cannot wait to give this designation to something I really love.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, this will come back up whether it comes from me or Will. Like, I'm confident that there will be things that we recommend to each other that we'll love. Yeah, again, Dandy AF. We're not going to be a review podcast, but we are going to point out things that we really love, and I think that's important about this podcast. We're positive guys, right? This is a positive podcast.
Hey, you got to call in Otaku. You got to, hey, if you love something, don't be afraid of being who you are. Own it and just say, hey, this is Dandy AF.
Yeah, and this both this podcast and Wotakoi are Dandy AF.
I'm so glad that I was able to suggest something that you liked so much.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did too. I didn't just like it; I loved it. It was awesome. However, this leads to my exhortation for you next week, Will.
Exhortation.
Yeah, so here's the thing. You were very confident going into your exhortation for Wotakoi that, Tristan and I would love Wotakoi.
Oh, I had this one locked and loaded for a long time.
This is a spicy fucking meatball that I'm bringing to the table for you.
Mhm.
It is something that I love dearly. I have watched it several times now. I enjoy it more each time. It might even be my favorite movie in general. It's definitely my favorite movie right now.
Okay, I'm feeling it. Now, I already know that you're more of a movie guy than I am. I don't watch a lot of movies. I have seen movies, and I like movies, but I'm not someone who like keeps up with all the movies and like sits and watches them all the time. So I'm looking forward to getting something out of left field for myself.
Yeah, so part of the otaku specialization thing, just to your point about being a movie guy, is like a very dark part of me. The dark otaku Jordan is just a horrible movie buff dude, and I try to resist it as much as I can because that's where a lot of my pretension comes from. But
Mhm.
it's a part of me. It's one I am a movie guy. So this is all to say that I'm recommending something to you that I have had a very low hit rate with because I think there's no one that can dispute the fact that it is a good, very well made movie.
All right, I'm ready for it.
We're going to be watching and then talking about next week The Lighthouse, starring Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe.
Okay. I know nothing about this. I know who those actors are, but I know nothing about this movie.
I'm going to shoot you a trailer just because the trailer is almost like as infamous as the movie is. It's a really damn good trailer. This movie, just to kind of give a brief overview of it, and then I'll say nothing else of it until our next podcast, is a period piece. It's about two guys that are charged with taking care of a lighthouse for a few weeks, and stuff gets crazy.
Okay.
It is an extremely well made, well acted, well shot film. It is a psychological thriller that is also a black comedy.
Okay.
So if you think you're supposed to be laughing, you are supposed to be laughing. I am very excited to talk about this with you because of how uncertain I am of whether or not you will like it. But I am 1000% sure we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Okay, yeah, this sounds great. I'm looking forward to seeing this trailer. I am just to let you and our audience know, I'm pretty weak to like horror stuff and like really scary stuff. Like psychological thriller, I'm pretty okay with. But if there are any like scary parts, I'm really weak to that kind of stuff. But luckily, my girlfriend is there for me to lean on if things get too scary. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking this out. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's not really a horror film. It has some like horror spice in it. There are some spooky scenes and shots and stuff, but it's more eerie than horrifying. It's intense is more where it is.
I'm definitely looking forward to watching this. Thank you for the exhortation.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say before we move on from this, I think this is going to be for me. This is this is me actually sharing something with you that I love a lot. But it is also I'm very proud of this exhortation because of the fact that there's a good chance that you could not like this movie. It just as much a good a chance as you could like it, and I'm excited to hear your response to it.
I promise if I don't like it, I will let you know.
I want you to. I want you to we're going to have a lot to talk about because this movie does a lot. It is not a dull affair, but yeah, I'm interested to hear your take on it. But anyways, yeah, I'll stop rambling on about it. I'm excited to have our conversation next week.
All right, yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. But I got to ask, it's been a little bit since we talked last. What have you been getting into lately outside of this podcast and the exhortations? What has your attention these days?
So the last week has actually been pretty busy for me work wise. So I didn't feel much up to challenging myself after work. So that meant not a lot of magic for me on Arena or any Dragon Age, because even though that's a kind of a game that I do like to chill out and play, like I didn't want any amount of like challenge this last week. So I actually just watched The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is horror television show with my girlfriend. And then I spent a lot of time hanging out with the kids and playing stuff like Mario Kart and I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Nidhogg 2.
I know the name, but I don't know what the gameplay is about.
It's like a 1v1 jousting game, basically. You play tug of war with the screen, moving from one area to another from like left to right. Like basically, you want to make it to the leftmost frame or rightmost frame, depending on what side you're on, to win the jousting match. And it's just comic. It's a very funny physics-based jousting game, and I played it with the kids. They love it to death.
Yeah, that actually sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sure it's very funny if something crazy goes on, right?
Oh, absolutely. The dude is very like precise. And you can like throw your weapons and stuff like that and jump and like do a lot of like physical confrontations. It's very good.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Oh, you've been watching a lot of anime this week, so makes sense that you weren't playing much Magic.
Yeah, and I do plan on getting back into some Magic this week, and I need some Nethroi in my life. But what about you, Will? What'd you do this last week?
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of anime. Watched Wotakoi, in preparation for this episode with my girlfriend, which is always a good time. I think it's the third time we've sit down and watched the entire thing together. But in terms of like video games, always playing Magic. I'm seriously addicted to that game. But other than that, not really getting too deep into anything. Mostly just Rocket League here and there. And you and I actually got the opportunity to play a little Rocket League together just the other day.
Yeah, it's still kind of a perfect game. I kind of come up short whenever I try to think of any criticisms for it. It's so well designed in terms of like controls, and it's very satisfying. And I feel happy whenever I play it.
You've been playing for a number of years. I just now got into it once it went free to play. So I'm very much still a noob, but it's definitely addicting for sure.
It doesn't really ever, because the matches are so quick and like so casual, it doesn't ever get frustrating. It's very inoffensive. It's very pretty. It's very it's just a great game. It's one of the most positive games that come out in the last, I don't know, 10 years.
The gameplay is positive. The people playing the game, maybe not so much, but I definitely hear what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Dandies, as always. This is a podcast born out of love and our loins and hearts, and we're glad that you guys come back and join us every week. Like Will pointed out last week, we'd love to hear more from you guys if you have anything that you want to say about the podcast, and watch The Lighthouse before our next episode if it behooves you, and kind of join along with the conversation there.
Yeah. Like I mentioned last episode, like we'd love it if the real disc dandies out there joined us every week and participated in experiencing the exhortation and then coming back, hearing what we have to say, telling us what you thought about this. Yeah, if you want to talk to us about Wotakoi, please hit us up on the internet. We'd love to hear what you say. We'd love for you to kind of join us on this journey every week, every episode.
For sure. On that note, you can follow Will on Twitter at AgroRhetoric. I'm Action Pancake on Twitter, and you can stay up to date on all the latest Disc Dandies excitement at Disc Dandies Pod on Twitter. Outside of that, join us here next episode for another spin with the Disc Dandies.
Roll that beautiful beam footage.
We done.
That doesn't mean anything. That's not related to anything that we're doing, but still roll that beautiful beam footage.
Oh, yeah. So, Will, whenever I was saying that I'm going to make this easy for you to watch, I was going to give you my Google Play login so that you guys can just jump on and watch it there. I own it digitally.
Oh, I'm sure I could just torrent it.